friends, my name is Miss Reagan and I am a plan mentor at the Children's Museum of Cleveland. I am so excited to read two baseball stories with you and the Baseball Heritage Museum. Our two stories today are Berenstain Bears Go Out for the Team and Randy Riley's Really Big Hit. Let's start with the Berenstain Bears. Brother and sister bear who lived with their mama and papa in the big tree house down a sunny dirt road deep in bear country enjoyed the changing seasons and the sports that went with them. Football and soccer in the fall, basketball and ice hockey in the winter, and their favorite, baseball in the spring. As soon as brother and sister felt the first warmth of the spring sun, they got out their trusty ball, bat, and gloves and began limbering up for the season. They played pitch and catch and practiced batting. Why, they even learned the rules of the game. Pretty soon, some of their friends came by to join the baseball fun. After a while, brother looked around and said, "Hey, I think we have enough for a game. Let's go over to Farmer Ben's back meadow and choose up sides." Farmer Ben was a good neighbor. He had been allowing cubs to play baseball in his meadow for years. Of course, the grassy meadow wasn't a real baseball field, so there were a few problems and some special ground rules. There were no foul lines, just base paths worn by year after year of cubs running the bases, so there were a lot of arguments about foul balls. There was a rule against sliding into second base because second base was a rock. And any ball that was hit into the duck pond in left field was a ground rule double and an automatic timeout while they fished the ball out. But arguments, rocks, and duck ponds didn't worry brother and sister and their friends. They chose up sides and started a game. Sister had done some growing since last season, and when she went to bat, she whacked her very first ground rule double. All the cubs, and even the ducks, were surprised. And her knowledge of the rules came in handy when Cousin Freddie forgot to touch second base on his way to third. She called for the ball, tagged second, and declared him out. He made a big fuss, but she pointed out that those were the rules. "Isn't that right?" she asked Farmer Ben, who was watching from the sideline. "Right as rain," said Farmer Ben. The game moved right along until brother hit a ball all the way into the next field and Farmer Ben's goat got it. "Back so soon?" asked Papa, looking up from his paper as brother and sister trooped back home. "Yep," said sister, holding up the ball. Game called off on account of Farmer Ben's goat chewing the cover off the ball. Papa was pretty impressed when he heard about brother's hit and sister's ground rule double. "Seems to me," said Papa, "that you cubs might want to think about playing some real baseball on a real baseball field. It says right here in the paper that the Bear Country Cub League is going to be holding tryouts pretty soon. You might want to sign up." "Now hold on," interrupted Mama. "That's a high-powered league over there, and those tryouts involve quite a lot of pressure." "Pressure?" asked Sister. "What do you mean?" "You'll be competing against lots of other cubs, and not everyone is going to make the team," said Mama. "But you both play pretty well," she added, "so it's up to you." "Won't hurt to drive over and have a look," said Papa. "Wow," said brother when he saw the Cub League field. It was a real field with fences and foul lines and real bases and grandstands and everything. And the teams wore uniforms. Brother and sister signed up right then and there. They got ready for the tryouts by practicing. They practiced fielding and hitting. Mama showed them how to choke up on the bat against fast pitching. They even practiced bunting and base running, but as tryout day drew near, they began to get a little nervous. "Try to calm down," said Mama. "It's only a game. Besides, the worst that can happen is that you won't make the team. You can always try out again next year." "No, that's not the worst that could happen," said Brother, looking gloomy. "The worst that can happen is that Sis makes the team and I don't." "I consider that a sexist remark," snapped Sister angrily. "Well, not completely," said Mama. "After all, Brother's older than you, and he's proud of his baseball ability." "I see what you mean about pressure," said Sister. Finally, the day of the tryouts came. There were Cubs all over the field, and league officials with clipboards and sunglasses so you couldn't see what they were thinking. Each Cub had a number, and the officials moved around the field watching the Cubs and making checks on their clipboard. Talk about pressure. Brother and Sister were nervous at first. Sister missed an easy ground ball, and Brother swung too hard at bat, missed the ball completely, and fell down on the seat of his pants. But as the tryouts continued, they both settled down and did a little better. Brother remembered to choke up on the bat. He hit a good single and went to second base when the fielder bobbled the ball. Sister fielded some grounders as well. And once, when she was batting, the catcher dropped the third strike and she ran to first base even though she had struck out. There was a big fuss, but an official was watching and said she was right. "Well, how did you do?" asked Mama when she and Papa came to pick the Cubs up after the tryouts. "Hard to say," answered Brother. "We certainly weren't the best." "But we weren't the worst either," said Sister. "Anyway, it's only a game, and the worst that can happen is that we won't make the team." "Yeah," said Brother. "We can always try again next year if we want to." "When will you know?" asked Papa as they headed home. "They're going to post the results on the bulletin board tomorrow," said Brother. "Well," said Papa the next day, "don't you think we ought to drive over and check up?" "I guess so," said Brother. "May as well," said Sister. When they reached the field, Brother and Sister ran to the bulletin board. "Talk about pressure," said Papa, mopping his brow as he and Mama waited in the car. "Indeed," said Mama, fanning herself. At last, Mama and Papa heard a shout as Brother and Sister burst out of the crowd around the bulletin board. "We made it! We made it!" they shouted, jumping for joy. "There are 4 teams in the league," shouted Sister. "The Cardinals, the Blue Jays, the Orioles, and the Catbirds. We both made the Cardinals." "Terrific," said Papa. "Congratulations," said Mama. On the day of the first game, the Cubs looked elegant in their uniforms, and Mama and Papa sat up front in the grandstand. The Brother was up to bat against the Blue Jays. The pitcher wound up and threw a fastball. Brother watched it go by. "Strike 1," called the umpire. "That was no strike," screamed Mama, waving her hat. "It was wide by a mile. Call yourself an umpire." "Mama, please," hissed Sister from the sideline. "Calm down and remember, it's only a game." "Sorry about that," said Mama. Then she straightened her hat, sat down, and enjoyed the rest of the game. The end. Okay, friends, I hope you enjoyed the story about Berenstain Bears. We have one more book to read today, and then we'll be all done. We're reading Randy Riley's Really Big Hit. Randy Riley stood at bat. He gazed out at the mound. His knees began to tremble, and his heart began to pound. Then Randy started thinking about the pitcher's throw. He wondered, without gravity, how far the ball would go. As he stood there pondering, strike three went whizzing by. "You're out," he heard the umpire call, then walked off with a sigh. See, Randy was a genius. He just couldn't hit the ball. He struck out every time at bat. He wasn't good at all. But something beyond baseball brought a smile to Randy's face. What Randy Riley really loved was stuff from outer space. He studied all the planets. He memorized their tilt. He researched how the thrusters on the rocket ships were built. He knew the constellations and the light years to the stars. And wouldn't it be great, he thought, to ride a bike on Mars? When Randy Riley got back home, he went up to his room. He knew he stunk at baseball, and it filled his heart with gloom. So he took his favorite robots from the shelf above his head and staged a game of baseball with his robot team instead. That night before he went to sleep, Randy scanned the sky, and through his Spaceboy telescope, a glimmer caught his eye. He fiddled with the focus till he saw it crystal clear. It was a massive fireball, and it was coming near. Alarmed, he started plotting the projection of its path. He formulated diagrams. He double-checked his math. He calculated quickly and concluded with a frown. In 19 days, the fireball would crash into the town. Randy Riley flew downstairs to warn his mom and dad. The impact would be major and the damage would be bad. He explained the situation until his face was red, but they told him he was tired and they sent him off to bed. Poor Randy couldn't sleep at all. He thought the whole night through. By morning, it was obvious just what he had to do. He gathered what he needed with determined resolution and lugged it off behind the shed to work on his solution. Randy toiled for 18 days while the other kids had fun, but he was on a mission, so he worked till he was done. At breakfast on the 19th day, the news announcer said, "This is a special bulletin, emergency, code red. A fireball's approaching. It just flew past the moon. It's coming so fast, so be prepared for it to hit by noon." Everybody burst outside as fear and panic grew, but Randy ran back to the shed. He had a job to do. He grabbed the tarp and gave it a tug. He slid it off to reveal the mighty mammoth robot man he'd welded out of steel. The robot needed power, and Randy knew precisely that 97 batteries would energize it nicely. The eyes lit up, the engine whirred. Step 1 was now complete. So far, so good, thought Randy. Then they thundered down the street. Step 2 of Randy's mission took place just south of town in a section known as Millville, where he slowed the robot down. The robot ripped the smokestack off an old abandoned mill, then Randy turned the throttle knob to march him up the hill. Back in town, the people were frightened as could be. But Randy knew the time had come for critical step 3. The robot burst out through the trees. He stepped up and took a stance while everybody fell silent as if frozen in a trance. Randy's eye was on the ball. No room for error now. There, 3, 2, 1, and flip the switch, a swoosh, and then kapow! A blinding flash, a booming crash. He knew what he had done. Randy Riley had a hit, his very first home run. The fireball sailed out of sight. A rousing cheer began. Hooray for Randy Riley and his giant metal man. And as the crowd went crazy, Randy stood there with a grin and mumbled, "How predictable, a fastball, low and in." When things returned to normal after Randy saved the day, he went back to the baseball field to join his friends at play. And though he swings in earnest, he rarely hits the ball, but that's okay, because Randy's had the biggest hit of all. All right, the end. All right, friends, I want to encourage you to check out cmc.cleveland.org for lots of other fun things going on at the museum while we are closed. I hope you enjoyed our stories today, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye!